How did you reverse your family's rules? The curfew was 8 p.m., not 8:15, not 8:05, not 8:01, 8 o'clock exactly, or the basement door would already be open when I got home. My father standing beside it with his arms crossed and that expression on his face. The one that said he was disappointed but not surprised. The one that made it clear this was my fault for not planning better. None of it mattered. Late was late, and late meant consequences. I spent my first night in the basement when I was 19, came home at 8:07 after my shift at the coffee shop ran long because someone called in sick, and my manager begged me to cover. Called my dad from work to explain. He said he understood. Said we'd talk when I got home. I actually believed him. I drove home feeling relieved. Pulled into the driveway at 8:07. Dad was waiting on the porch. Pointed to the basement door without saying a word. The basement wasn't finished. Concrete floor cold enough to hurt. One bare bulb hanging from a wire that didn't reach the corners. No bathroom. No heat in winter. No fan in summer. Just a folding metal chair and a sleeping bag that smelled like mildew. I'd sleep in that bag shivering or sweating depending on the season. Listening to my family move around upstairs. Hearing their voices muffled through the floorboards. The TV playing. Laughter during dinner. Normal life continuing while I sat in the dark counting hours until Dad decided I'd learned my lesson. The first night I cried. Begged him through the door to let me out. Promised I'd never be late again. He didn't respond. Just walked away while I pounded on the wood until my hands hurt. Mom came down once with a bottle of water and a granola bar. Told me this was for my own good. That I needed to learn that actions had consequences. That the real world wouldn't tolerate people who couldn't follow simple rules. She left before I could argue. I spent 13 hours down there before Dad let me out the next afternoon. Missed a morning shift at work. Lost half a day's pay. All for being 7 minutes late through no fault of my own. My older brother Damien had no curfew. He was 24 and lived in the house completely free. No rent, no chores, no rules about when he came or went. He'd stumble in at 2 or 3 in the morning smelling like alcohol and cigarettes, sleep until noon, eat whatever food was in the fridge. Dad would see him and say nothing. No lectures about responsibility, no discussions about contributing, no consequences for being unemployed for 18 months while claiming he was finding his path. My younger sister Iris was 17 and treated like royalty. No curfew, no expectations, no responsibilities whatsoever. She spent her days painting in the converted garage studio Dad had built for her. Spent her nights at friends' houses or parties without ever telling anyone where she was going. Mom would defend this by saying Iris needed creative freedom, needed space to develop her artistic voice without constraints. Meanwhile, I paid $400 a month in rent, while Iris got a weekly allowance of $75 for art supplies. The inequality was suffocating. I worked 45 hours a week at a coffee shop that paid $11 an hour. Gave half my paycheck to Dad for rent and groceries, even though the groceries were mostly eaten by Damien and Iris. Came home exhausted, and had to cook dinner for 6 people by 6:30 p.m. exactly, or face another lecture. Had to clean the entire house every Saturday morning while Damien slept and Iris painted. My parents sat on the porch drinking coffee. If I complained, Mom would say I was being selfish, that I should be grateful they let me live here at all. But the real poison wasn't the rules themselves. It was watching those same rules disappear for everyone else. Damien could leave dishes in the sink for 3 days and nobody said anything. Iris could skip her weekly chore and Mom would make excuses about her needing to finish a painting. Dad would literally step over the vacuum cleaner I was pushing to tell me I'd missed a spot. The hypocrisy was so blatant, it felt like gaslighting. I tried talking to them about it once. Sat everyone down and calmly explained how unfair the system was. Asked why I had different rules than my siblings. Dad said it was because I was the oldest and needed to set an example. I pointed out that Damien was older than me. Dad said Damien was going through a transitional period and needed support, not pressure. Mom said I was being divisive, trying to turn the family against each other. That conversation ended with Dad sending me to the basement for being disrespectful. I spent that night writing a list of every rule and every exception, every punishment I'd received that my siblings hadn't. Everything changed on a Friday in November. I got stuck in traffic on the highway coming home from work, not moving, completely stopped. Watched the clock tick from 7:43 to 7:51 to 7:58. Called Dad at 7:55 to explain. Told him I'd left work on time, but traffic was backed up from an accident. He could probably hear the frustration in my voice, the fear. He listened silently while I explained. Then he said, "Rules are rules, Meredith. You know that." And what happened next changed everything.